Hello, I'm Josh Lee, and this is my presentation on the barriers to Web 2.0 for AEP 800 Module 5. So first we're going to summarize the articles and video that we watched. The first article that we read was over Open Educational Resources movement and how that was scaling up. And this focused on connecting lessons. So online resources were once used, they mostly was a supplement to other things. So you had your regular curriculum, and you might have gone online for a few extra things to do. But they're beginning to become more of a full curriculum. They're becoming like teachers are using this all online stuff, all open educational resources to make their full curriculum and lining it up. The focus there is on connecting those things. So it's not a series of individual lessons. It's a connected curriculum all the way through. The next article was about the digital divide, and this was about how some areas still don't have broadband internet available to them at all, so they don't have the same access that everybody else has. This creates issues with access to education, creates issues with communication among people. The problem is just for businesses right now, it's not affordable to provide this access and this wiring to new areas, and they're trying to set up different plans and put money into infrastructure for the entire government to try to set up a system where everybody has the same access, so that divide doesn't exist as much. Because right now, some of the people who live in these poor rural areas are having a hard time having the same access to the things that are available for others. Next, we read 7 common barriers that obstruct tech adoption in education. Basically, this is talking about how there are a few barriers that cut off education, cut off the technology, and how much we innovate and how much we move towards that. The 7 things they said were: 1, having just a lack of vision and having nobody who's really pushing for that in a district. They talked about having to change teachers' roles and how a teacher goes from being the person in charge in a teacher-centered curriculum in class to a more student-centered classroom where teachers are learning at the same time, and how that's difficult for teachers to accept because they haven't seen it and haven't learned it. Next, we talked about considering the achievement gap, and I mentioned this on the earlier article about digital divide. But if you don't have access to internet and the district is moving towards this technology innovation, you can be at a disadvantage the entire time. Next, we have finding how to scale promising innovations. And just when you have great ideas, it's finding a way to push those to the entire building or the entire district. Then we had lack of money for tech. And we know school funding, especially in the state of Kansas, is always an issue. And just having that money available for schools to keep using more and more technology and keep advancing that. And so often the money goes, if there is money, goes to teachers and goes to curriculum and in those areas, which is important, but sometimes technology gets left behind in those cases. We talked about then how to think beyond textbooks, so we don't get locked into here's a textbook and think of a textbook as more of a resource versus being your curriculum. If the textbook you do have is a resource, then it's okay to go outside of it for extra things to supplement your materials. Versus if you just think that's your curriculum, then you don't explore technology, you don't do those new innovative things. And finally, we had that you're just having that strong infrastructure in place. And they mentioned both people and the actual technology, the actual buildings, and the actual having the Wi-Fi and all of that. You need to have people who are helping with the technology, making it work, as well as the capabilities in your facilities just to have it happening. The next article was barriers to using Web 2.0 in the 21st century schools. And there are really 4 main barriers discussed here. Lack of time, teachers just not having the planning time to implement new things. Lack of training, obviously teachers not being ready and feeling like they know what they're doing with that stuff. Lack of tech support, not having somebody who can help you out if issues do come up. And then lack of administrative support. Again, going back to if there's money or resources, those things are getting funneled towards, the math or the language arts and increasing those test scores and not towards technology. And then we had a video, and the video discussed that there are the differences between technology in a primary versus a secondary classroom. And using the example of like one-to-one technology and how it's maybe easier in a primary classroom because you have fewer kids, you're with them for more time, so you become more accustomed to what's happening there, versus a secondary classroom where you have a bunch of kids, very small amounts of time with those students. And so maybe you're less likely to implement the technology as effectively as somebody who is in a primary classroom. Those are the articles and video that we had this time. Now, answering the 8 questions. The first question: do you feel the digital divide can be resolved? This is kind of a heavy-handed question, so I put, I feel like it can be resolved, but it's not going to be an easy issue. And the biggest problem with that is the varying socioeconomic status of our students. When you have affluent students and you have very poor students, this can be a difficult issue. That divide's going to be there. You're going to have students who don't have the same access, don't have the devices, don't have the broadband internet, whatever the case may be, as other students. In schools where we have different districts and different areas that have these issues, this is going to have to be resolved through government. If schools are funded properly, where we all have access to the same resources, this can help this situation. But where we have some schools that are poorer schools in poorer areas, they just don't have the same ability, same access that schools in more affluent areas have. And then obviously, no matter what, to help this divide, we have to teach our students how to use technology effectively. It's not enough to just put it in front of them, but if we want to really close these gaps, we have to teach them how to use it as well. Next question is talking about skills that we feel are important for the 21st century skills that we have to have our students acquiring prior to graduation. And I made 4 points here I thought were important. First of all, I think students need to have the ability to work with others. Teamwork, working with somebody who's in charge, being in charge, working with people who you're in charge of. All those are important skills. Being able to be a creative problem solver. So not just problem solving, but creative problem solving where you can think outside the box for new solutions to a problem. Having the ability to be a self-starter or a self-motivator, that you don't have to have somebody, sitting over your shoulder to get you to work and do what you need to do. You can go out and do it on your own, and then you're motivated by something intrinsically to make things happen. And then finally, having the ability to research and use resources, whether that's technology or library or open sources or whatever the case may be, just that you have the ability to know what resources you need in order to find the answers you're looking for. Next question, what impact has the global economy had on your personal use of the internet? So things I thought about here. First of all, as we have this global economy and everybody's competing with each other, the push is for efficiency, to make things cheaper, to make things faster. Companies are being pushed to make life easier for us because they have to be efficient to make themselves competitive. Being able to do online shopping at your fingertips, or make orders and go pick up stuff at the grocery store, so it saves that time. Those are things that are happening now because of this force that companies have to make things easier for us. Global competition is going to make everybody push to keep improving. Social media platforms push to improve, and we use a lot of those, whether it's in the classroom or personal use. Social media is out there and it's improving, and it's something that we all have in front of us, and our methods of communication. Like social media or email or whatever method you use, a lot of that stuff's online, and that the technology or the internet has closed in this global economy and made it a much smaller world than what it used to be. And then obviously we have technology pushing to be able to solve problems. And so things that were tough or unsolvable in the past have become problems that can be solved now through technology. And that's something that is coming more and more over time. Next question is, what technology training do you still need to effectively integrate technology in your current position? I've said this before, but I think it's huge that we have content-specific training for all areas. Personally, right now I'm a math person, but as a building leader, it would be important to see this over all areas. But we can't just say integrate technology. We have to show how it's being done or how it can be effective in each area. So it's differentiated instruction as far as professional development for staff, where math people can talk to math people and socialist people talk to socialist people, or whatever the case may be, so that we all have a chance to say in our area what's effective. Once we have this initial training, we have to have follow-up training and support for all staff. I know this as well. We need to keep sticking with it, so that it's not something where we have a one-time training on how we use technology effectively in our classrooms, and then we just forget about it and hope everybody bought in. We need to follow that up and keep supporting our staff to keep it going. And then have that collaborative time where we can talk about what worked or what didn't work, and have discussions over what we've seen, especially within departments, but even in cross-curricular atmospheres, where we can say, hey, this worked in your classroom, could it work in my classroom, and have those conversations. Next we talked about is your school or district equipped with 21st century technology? My current district is Valley Center USD 262, and I believe that we are equipped with the best technology we could have for our 21st century stuff. First of all, our students in 6 through 12 are one-to-one with Chromebooks. So each kid has a Chromebook they have in class, they can take home with them. So we have that available to us every day. District's always working to increase our bandwidth. We've had issues here and there where so many people were using the internet that it slows things down. The district is building bandwidth over time so that not only do we have the Chromebooks, but they can be used whenever needed. We have computer labs, so if you need something where it's not on a Chromebook, if you want to get into like the Microsoft Office suite or whatever, you have that ability to go to a computer lab and use those. Some classrooms have interactive whiteboards. It's not in every room, but there are a lot of rooms that have those as extra technology. And then many of our classes function primarily through Google Classroom. So a lot of it's done online. The assignments are there, the lessons are there, the notes are there, there's videos there. It's all implemented in one place. So rather than take home textbooks and notes and whatever else, you have it all right in front of you online through that system. So I think we've done a lot in this district to push towards giving the kids those skills to work with the 21st century technology. Now, talking about advantages of innovative practices in schools. I'll list a few of these. First of all, when we are innovative as teachers in our school classrooms, then we're creating students who are prepared to live and be productive in the 21st century. So those students are getting different skills. You know, in your life, these students are not going to sit in front of a teacher and have a teacher just spit information at them constantly. That's not the way it works for them. So we have to teach them in different ways and have them functioning in different ways to be ready for what they're going to do. Innovative practices lead to a student-centered education, which is best for kids. As a building principal, my primary vision is that we do what's best for our students. And having a student-centered approach is what's best for kids. Moving away from the teacher-centered ideas. So that's an important piece of this. It's an advantage of being innovative is we're having something that's what the students need. When you show students, when you're willing to innovate, you're showing students that innovation and change can be good things. That it's not okay to sit in the status quo all the time, that you can push yourself to move past that and do some different things. Now, disadvantages I see to this. One, anytime you're making changes, it's possible they could fail. So as you innovate and you do new things and you try new things in your classroom, you might run into some things that just don't work, and that's okay. But it is a disadvantage that you may have times where things just don't work the way you hope they would. Obviously, we've talked about this before, but with the digital divide, limited access for some students to internet or technology may cause issues. So if you're flipping a classroom and relying on students to watch a video outside of the classroom and they don't have that access to do it, you're going to have some problems there. So you have to keep in mind as you make these changes and innovate that you need to be accommodating to all your students as well. And then also put that you're going to have varying ability or experience with technology, and that's both for students and for teachers. So you're going to have teachers who don't feel comfortable with technology. You have to train. You're going to have students who don't necessarily feel comfortable with technology, and you have to work with them and teach them how to use it. I put them at disadvantages. There are opportunities to learn, but if you go in guns blazing thinking this is the way it's going to work right away, you might feel like it's a disadvantage to have to teach these things and teach along the way, and that's okay. It just has to happen. Now, last question was, have you experienced problems with cyberbullying or other inappropriate internet use with students? And sure, I think we probably all have. If the kids have technology, it comes up. So like I said, we've had some cyberbullying, and the problem with that is it's so hard to monitor. These kids know ways around you knowing what's happening, and so a lot of this is a student has to bring it to your attention, or else it's hard to find out it happens. Other inappropriate internet use, we've had students who are doing inappropriate things, like they're on games when they should be listening to instruction, or they're chatting with friends, whether through a chatting app or through email or whatever, rather than being a part of instruction. So we've had times where students have been restricted on their internet, or in fact, some cases they've lost access to the internet or lost access to their device in extreme cases. So we've had this come up, different inappropriate things, and had to deal with it on a case-by-case basis and setting policies as we go. Thank you.